All right, guys, hello. This video is going to be over inverse trig functions. This is also section 9.6 in Big Ideas Math. So we just remember SOHCAHTOA, which if you've watched the other videos, you know, but it's something that's important. So let's talk about it. We've got sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. SOH. Cosine theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. CAH. And our last one, tangent theta, is opposite over adjacent. And we get this from TOA, TOA. Now remember, your adjacent and opposite depend on where your theta is. I've got my theta right here. So the side across is my opposite. The side across from 90 is your hypotenuse. And the other side is your adjacent. So let's use this to review. So SOHCAHTOA. Well, here's my theta. So there's my opposite, my hypotenuse, and my adjacent. Looks like I'm using hypotenuse and adjacent. Hypotenuse and adjacent. Oh, hypotenuse and adjacent. So I'm going to be cosine theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Fill in what you know. Our theta is 32. So I get cosine 32 equals adjacent x over hypotenuse 23. We're finding a side, so we cross multiply. 23 cosine 32 equals x. So 23 cosine 32, and I get that is 19.5. Now, the thing that we're learning about today is called inverse trig functions. Now, they're just the same as trig functions, except that they're the inverse. They cancel each other out. So if I look at this one right here, I notice that my x is here. So if I try to cross multiply, I'm going to get 13 sine x equals 5. Now, unfortunately, I can't plug in x to the calculator. The calculator doesn't know what x is, so I can't do it. So cross multiplying isn't going to work here. So I've got to figure out some way to get x by itself. And we do that by multiplying both sides by sine inverse. And really, it's not multiplying. It's really taking the sine inverse. Inverses cancel, so sine and sine inverse are inverses, so they cancel. So we're left with x equals sine inverse of 5 over 13. Now that I can put in my calculator. So if you have the yellow ones, it's second sine 5 divided by 13. And I get 22.6. Now, this is an angle because it's in the theta spot, so that's why we need degree. Now, you might be wondering, okay, great, I don't have one of those calculators. How can I do this? So let's look at that. So make sure that you have Google Calculator open. Make sure you're in degree mode. We go inverse, and there it is. Now it's also known as arc sine, if you didn't know, of 5 divided by 13. And there we go, 22.6. Okay. So let's just practice a few more of those and make sure that we can solve these. Okay. Well, here's my theta, but that's weird. Theta's x. That's okay. We'll worry about that in a second. So you have opposite and hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse. Let's see, that's OH, so it's sine. So we go sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Plug in what you know. Well, this time theta is x. Our opposite is 14, and our hypotenuse is 24. Let's see. If I cross multiply, that's not going to help. What about if I take an inverse? Well, what will that cancel out? Well, inverses cancel out. So sine and sine inverse cancel out. Makes sense. And on this side, we have sine inverse of 14 over 24. This time, let's find our answer using Google Calculator. All right. So clear your answer from last time. Make sure you're in degree mode. We want inverse sine of 14 divided by 24. And hit enter. So it looks like it's going to be 35.7. This is an angle, so we use an inverse. Now, you might be wondering, okay, that's great, Mr. Hunter, but I'm going to have a hard time remembering when to use an inverse. Well, here's what I always say. If your variable is inside the triangle, you're going to need an inverse. So inside, you need an inverse. All right, let's just do one more, and then we'll call it a day. All right, I've got my opposite, my hypotenuse, my adjacent. Let's see, that's A, H. So this is going to be cosine. So cosine theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So cosine, our theta is x, our adjacent is 10, and our hypotenuse is 31. Our variable was inside, so we're going to use an inverse. But this time, we're going to use cosine inverse. So we get x equals cosine inverse of 10 over 31. I'm going to use a calculator this time. So second cosine, 10 divided by 31. And I ended up with 71.2. It's an angle, so degrees. Okay, so there we go. That's the basics of inverse trig functions. So as always, hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next video.